All right. Hello, friends of Facebook. I think we're live. Facebook changed a couple things and I think it's working, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, hello, everyone. It is great to see you. My name is Elle Campbell. Who are you, David?
I'm David Magianis.
That's right. Sorry for the spoiler alert. Friends, we are excited to be with you today. Welcome to another deep dive into Grow Students' curriculum. If you're not familiar with these videos, we've got two purposes here for you. If you do not use Grow, we are here to just let you steal our ideas. So you can see what we're going to be doing in Grow curriculum in March. You can get some new fun series ideas. You could, today we're talking about like a spring retreat. So you can learn some stuff about how to prepare for a spring retreat. But if you do use Grow, then that's cool because you'll get some like behind the scenes extra pro tips on how to make use of all of the amazing resources that you get in your subscription. So that's the plan. So today, we're talking about what's coming up in March. We're talking about two things. First, we're doing a teaching series called Lost and Found. We'll have you talk to us more about that in a second, David. And then we're going to look at our spring retreat guide. So we'll kind of walk through some of like the technical aspects of how to plan a spring retreat or an any time of the year retreat. If you have questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. That is what we're here for. We are happy to like highlight things that you're interested in or stop talking about things you don't care about or go back and repeat things that we said because you weren't listening. We're happy to do all of those things. Just tell us what you want in the comments and we will follow your lead. Also, I will log out of Slack so that I don't irritate you all with the chimes. So that's the plan today. So I'm ready. Are you ready, David?
I am ready too. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm super pumped. I was telling you about this beforehand that I'm really looking forward to this. So yeah, I'm super pumped.
I'm excited because you love all of the parables that we're going to talk about in a second. And
Sure
also, you're in Texas, David, but you do have power, unlike most people in Texas, right?
Yeah. Very fortunately, my home here in Texas has survived so far. We've gotten a couple inches of snow at this point, but yes, we have power, we have water. So we are, thanking and praising that, everything's good so far. But obviously, if you're watching this and you're in Texas or anywhere else, prayers for our state and for Texas, for those who aren't without power or water. I know a lot of churches locally here have opened up as warming stations. And so, just a lot of prayers for people who aren't as fortunate and that sort of thing. So yeah.
Yes. And if we lose you in the middle of this call, we'll know why. But otherwise, if you're in Texas and you need some help and support from your friends at Stuff You Can Use, hit us up. We got you, fam. So, okay, let's dive into this. You ready?
I'm super ready.
I am going to share my screen so we can see all these things. All right. First thing we're going to look at today is this series that, like I said, is called Lost and Found. It is written by our friend Nick Walburn, who, if you don't know Nick, you just know he is one of the most lovable human beings on this planet. So just get to know Nick. He's great. He might even knit you a blanket. He's just great like that. He can knit. Did you know that, David?
I did not know that. No, I did not.
Great fact about Nick. So this series, it is going through some of the parables of Jesus, specifically 3 parables about 3 lost things. And we're going to talk about that. So why don't you give us an overview of the series and where we're heading with it, David?
Yes. So to begin and to start with, these are some of my favorite parables in the entire Bible, specifically that Jesus teaches. These are all found in Luke chapter 15. These are the lost parables. So like Elle said, I'm just so excited to just dive deep with you guys about these parables. And so in week 1, let's just go right into this. The big idea is Jesus notices you. And this one, we're looking at the lost sheep. And so this one, we're going to be focusing on the lost sheep and how the shepherd goes out and reaches the one lost sheep out of the 99. We do a really great job breaking it down of talking about the sheep. We have these great modules that we'll go into a little bit about how we can unpack that, make it relatable for your students and for every week. One thing I did notice about this series that I love is that even though there are a lot of in-person interactive modules, there are also a lot of great question modules that we can use if you're online or if you're on Instagram or if you're pre-recording or anything like that. So yeah, there's a lot of great modules to do that as well. So that's week 1, lost sheep. Week 2, we'll move into the lost coin. The big idea is Jesus values you. And this one where we're just talking about how God values us even when we don't feel valuable, a very important lesson in the lives of our students. Students have often many times looking for different places where they might feel valued, whether that's their friends, relationships, or other things, and just kind of be really not sure about their value. And so this one, we really teach them how God values them. So that we do also a great job of unpacking that as well. And then in week 3 and 4, we unpack the prodigal son story, where we start first off with the younger son and kind of tell his story. What does that mean to us? The big idea is Jesus welcomes you back. So obviously that's a big theme in the younger son, prodigal son story, where the son comes back. And then in week 4, it's we focus on the older son, the older, and kind of the bitterness of the older son towards the younger son, and how Jesus invites you to the party, invites all of us to the party. And so we do a really cool object lesson that we'll talk about in week 4 that I think you could even do if you're at home as well. And so, yeah, I'm just super excited to dive into this teaching series. Nick did an awesome job with this. And I can't wait to hear about how lives are changed with this series, because this is all about the gospel and about, coming back to Jesus and how God values our students. And so it's exciting. It's an exciting lesson. So I'd love to hear how this works in your student ministry, whether you're online, in person, or even doing a hybrid. So I'm excited, if you couldn't tell.
I'm also excited. One of the things we talk about as a team a lot is like, okay, how do we kind of highlight the things in scripture that we didn't learn when we were teenagers, like some of those more nuanced ways of understanding a passage of scripture that, for whatever reason, maybe just didn't get taught to us when we were their age. And I think the story of the lost son is one of those, where, week 3 is where we're focusing on the son who ran away, right? And like, how are we like that son? But oftentimes when we teach this story, that's kind of where it ends. Whereas if you look at the story in context, and we talk a lot about like the context of the Pharisees and Jesus and their like ongoing tension, really the primary purpose of the story is to see yourself in the bitter son who did not celebrate his brother's homecoming. So I'm really glad that we are focusing a whole week on that, because, it's just a nuance I feel like I didn't really hear until I was older. So we're trying to, get our middle schoolers and high schoolers to think about that, and kind of go a little bit deeper than maybe some of the ways that this has been taught before. So I'm excited. A little room design idea for you. The font for this series is like a super simple font. Sometimes like the fonts we use are a little bit crazy, but this one's real simple. So you can do some cool stuff like cutting it out of styrofoam and making like a big stand out of it. So that's one suggestion we have here. This is a little stand made out of styrofoam. And then the other thing you can do too is if you're doing like a set design sort of idea, you can use little icons to represent the 4 aspects of the series that we're going to talk about: the lost sheep, the lost coin, the lost son, and the party. So get creative, do what you want, but that was our idea for you. We've got some games for this series that are all about some things that are lost and found, like find the shoe. I actually don't know what that game is, but it sounds cool. I think these games should all be in the Grow Games app by now, by the way, which if you don't know about that, it is free. You can find it in your favorite app store, the Grow Games and Icebreakers app, and all of these games are in there for you. So check it out. Your shopping list, all the typical goodies you get with Grow. Hacks for middle school, high school, and kids with special needs. There's Nick.
Yes.
What an angel. We love him. Also, I've told him this, but his wife has the best eyebrows, and I am so jealous of her eyebrows. None of you men will understand this, but okay, so let's dive in here, David. And you're gonna, carry this because these are your favorite stories. So, get in there and tell us all about it. But this first week is Jesus Notices You. And again, this is the parable of the lost sheep. Talk to us about this. What's going on?
Yeah, so this one's the lost sheep. The first module I want to talk about is this activity one, this twisted hide and seek. So it's just like, a classic hide and go seek. And so we've actually put 3 different options for you to do different hide and go seeks. So if you are meeting in person, you are comfortable doing in-person activities, we've got some great different ways to do hide and seek. So we've got camouflage, sardines, team hide and go seek. Just a good concept just to start off the series, just to like get students the mind frame of like lost and found and hiding and seeking, all that sort of thing. So if you're in person, that works for you. If you're not in person, these 2 question modules are actually like great ways to like kind of kick off your Zoom meetings if you're doing on that. Or if you're doing pre-recorded stuff, you can also like, pose these questions and have students respond like in the comments as well. Or if you're doing like follow-ups or something like that, you can do that as well. So these are, like I said, in each of these series, I believe there's a question module at the beginning of every week that you can kind of talk about if you're doing pre-recorded stuff. So this one's like, the classic, have you lost something? Have you ever gotten lost? And so just, again, getting the mindset into the lost and found motif. And so I feel like we do a really good job of, doing these opening activities that are related to the lesson and connected to the lesson. So that way we can get students focused and kind of like to the point. Mm-hmm. So we got those activities, and then we'll scroll down and get into our scripture section. And so this is all about the lost sheep. So we break it down here, talking about a little bit about, how these three parables are set up, like Elle was saying with the Pharisees, and just like, why are they so mad? And why does Jesus tell these stories? And, going into that, we give you an image here that you can use if you want to kind of display like what the Judean desert looks like, just so that students kind of have a frame of mind of what the lostness of a sheep would be in this desert. And then we get into the meat of the text, the lost sheep, and just telling the story and what Jesus had to say about it, and just kind of like some really cool themes that we pick up from that text. And then we finish off with something pretty cool. It's called My Faith Map. And so this will actually be a handout. So when we get to it, we can scroll all the way down, but this is My Faith Map, the module. And it's just talking about like, where your faith has been, asking them some really kind of introspective questions about their faith, about, do you feel lost? Do you feel close to God? What are your next steps? And just kind of like ways to just really be reflective of their relationship with Christ, and just kind of figure out, where am I at? And just and then like it goes all the way back to the big idea that Jesus notices you, that hopefully by realizing this, that they will be noticed by Jesus. And so we can scroll down to the handouts, and it's actually really cool because you could like print it out and hand it out to students. You can screenshot it and put it on your like Instagram story if you want to do that. You could, if you're doing like on Zoom, you can like send this in the chat and like have students like write it out on their phone or something like that. You can totally be creative if you're doing this online or even in person, just printing it out and handing it out to someone. So it's a really cool thing. It's really well done. And I think students will really get a good grasp of their faith and just kind of reflect a lot on their faith through this activity. So that's week one.
So good. I love just like how free form this activity is. Like if you are artistic, you can draw a picture. If you like words, you can write. This is really meant to just kind of help you think through and visualize like your story so far. And I just saw Kelly commented that a lot of, students in our ministries feel like they don't have an interesting story of faith to share, but they do. So this is here to kind of help them with that. And then the other thing I wanted to highlight too is I'm just going to go back up here to the scripture. We tried to be really intentional to humanize the Pharisees throughout this series. So you're going to see that a lot, because this is kind of another shortcut that I think we often take when we're teaching about the tension between Jesus and the Pharisees, that actually does a big disservice to students, which is that we talk about the Pharisees if they're just like these one-dimensional bad guys, right? Like, oh, they're just like the worst. But the reality is that these were the religious leaders of the time. Like they weren't terrible humans. Like they were trying to do their best to follow God, but they got some things wrong. So that's really what we're trying to highlight here, because the irony of all of these lost stories is that the Pharisees were so judgmental about like, oh, well, this person has it wrong. But what Jesus was trying to communicate throughout all of this is like, no, guys, you are the ones who have it wrong. But in order to help students really see that and to really get that, we have to humanize the Pharisees in these stories, because if they're just bad guys, nobody's going to see themselves in the bad guys. You know what I mean? Like this is not going to work. So we have to humanize the Pharisees in these stories. Otherwise, we're missing the whole point. So
exactly. I love Linda's comment. She said that you guys created a whole game about Pharisees too.
We did create a whole game about Pharisees. But listen, I still have strong feelings about the Pharisees. Guys, we're all Pharisees sometimes, fam. Amazing. Okay, great. So that's week one. I think we covered all the good stuff. Yep. By the way, if you were wondering, if you're not using Grow and you're like, man, those are a lot of pages, what the heck is in there? We actually provide our teaching content in two different formats. The first format is the sermon format. So this is kind of like if you are teaching up front, more lecture style, sermon style, this is the format you would use. But we also provide it in what we call the hybrid format, which is we take all of our discussion questions from, by the way, we give you a middle school version and a whoever you want version of the questions. And we actually put the questions, kind of sprinkle them throughout the teaching. So like right here. And the reason for that is that a lot of youth groups are small enough to kind of do a discussion as you're teaching. So that's what this format is for. So just wanted to clarify that in case you were curious. Okay, that brings us to week two. Here we're talking about the parable of the lost coin. And the big idea is that Jesus values you. Tell us about this one, David.
Yeah, so for this one, like you said, it's about the coin, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. Just a few things to point out first before we get to the scripture section. Again, here you have a question module to where you can, pose that online, pose that in person, pose that while you're on Zoom or pre-record or anything like that. So, like I said, a good way. So when I was in youth ministry, I loved teaching. I loved opening up with questions, opening up with broad questions. That way, just you get students talking, get students thinking. So again, great job, Nick, with putting all these questions in there. It's awesome to have those in there. I really like that style a lot. But this activity that I do want to point out is called this trash sculptures. And so essentially, like if you're in person, you can fill up small trash cans with trash. So don't fill it up with like actual trash, or don't just pull them from your church and just like, yeah, that would not be good.
No,
But just like fill it up with just
that's
like
a super spreader event is what that is. That's
exactly. We do not want that to happen. But what you can do is like pre-fill them up with just like random supplies, like office supplies, random, just whatever supplies you have. Like churches, find that closet, it's like all the random supplies. And so you can just grab all this stuff in there, put it in there, and you're going to tell your students to try to make sculptures, like trash sculptures. And so that's just kind of like a fun way just to like open up this lesson, trying to figure out about like, what's trash, what's treasure, what do you really value, and that sort of thing. One man's like we have here, one man's trash is one man's treasure. So like, what do we think? What are the things we value or treasure, and that sort of thing. So you could also do this online if you're doing like on Zoom or something like that. You can just tell them to grab things from their house and just make a random trash sculpture. So the poll is a really cool thing that I want to point out as well. Just trying to get things.
Hold on. I'm just laughing because I'm just picturing like a parent coming downstairs to see their teenager rummaging through the trash. Like, honestly, what's wrong with you?
I know. Who knows? It could happen.
I want it to happen. That sounds amazing. Okay, go ahead.
So the poll is good too. I love the poll. Also, just a good way to open things up. Like trash or treasure, matter of perspective. This is kind of like a this or that kind of module. Do you like dogs or cats better? The book or the movie? Pizza or tacos? All that sort of thing. So it's just opinions of like what do we value the most. And then we'll go into our scripture. We're talking here about the coin, about the woman who is searching so much about the coin. And another cool thing that we do in our scriptures in every single week after the first week is we kind of give like a little breakdown of like, what was taught in the weeks in the past before. So that way, like if a student shows up for like week 2, 3, or 4 for the first time, they're not going to be completely lost of like what's happening in the past and that sort of thing. But we do a really good job of a brief summary. We get into this, talk about the parable with the woman of the lost coin, how she values that one lost coin. And then when she finds it, she throws like a huge party. And so, yeah, so that's the scripture section. And it's great. I love it. I love it. And then at the very last one, we get to do like a little hands-on activity where it's the valuable coins. It's like this reflection kind of deal where we get to pass out coins, and you can write on the coin, Jesus values me. And I believe on the other side, it says Jesus values other people as well. Just a good, really tangible reminder of like, how Jesus values us, how we're the coin. And when Jesus finds us, like we celebrate and we're all happy about that. So a good little tangible reminder. If you're doing online or in person, online stuff, you can send it ahead of time to your students. So that they can have it and then you can do it together while you're online. If you're pre-recorded, same deal, you can send it ahead of time. And so when you get to this part, if you choose to do this, you can like have them do it like on themselves and that sort of thing. So it's a little bit about week 2. Anything else, Elle, that you want to add or talk about?
No, I think that's great. I think the only thing I would just add / reinforce is, so when we're doing parables, like I feel like the magic of parables is that they're so multifaceted. Like you're invited to imagine yourself in the shoes of like all of the different characters in the parables. And so we really tried to do that throughout the series where, don't just imagine yourself as this character or this coin, but also imagine yourself as like, the other people in the character. So in the story. So that's why we do like one side of the coin is that Jesus values me. The other side is that Jesus values others, to kind of get that broad empathy type of thing going on. So I think we do that in some way throughout every week in the series, and I like it so much. So that's all I wanted to say. I'm into it.
Perfect.
All right, week 3, we're talking about how Jesus welcomes you back, and this is part 1 of the lost son story, where we're focusing on the son who ran away. So talk to us about this one, David.
Yes. So this one, yeah, like you said, we're doing part 1 of the prodigal son. And to open things up, we are going to start with a question. I really want to point out this question of, have you ever thrown something away that you later regretted? So like, I'm a big person who loves to keep things. And so sometimes like if I throw something away, I regret it. I think we also talked about like, have you ever felt ashamed for losing something valuable? I think teenagers are in the prime age to like kind of really answer these questions, because sometimes, you know, their brains are still developing, very scattered brains sometimes. And so they for sure have lost something or forgotten something. So that'll really tie in well with just the connection of being lost and their feelings of like when they've lost something or something like that. So really cool way to open up with that, with this series, with these questions. So we got that, and then we go into the story and we dive right in deep into it. We again do like a little recap of what's happened in the past, and then we dive right into the story. We talk about it like, and we break it down like historically, contextually, culturally, what we're like, and we break down like all the little actions of the lost son, of like everything that he did, from telling his father off to like going off away, what it meant for him to want what the pigs ate, and like how that was like a loss of identity to the ultimate extent. So we really break it down. We really give you guys a lot of meat to go through and to really teach from. And like Elle said, like we really do a lot of the contextual and cultural work for you, so that way you just kind of teach it for your students. And with that, to like, not only do we just give you the context, but we also try to find ways to like make it come alive as well. And so obviously a big, huge part is the robe, the ring, and the sandals that the father gives to the son after the son comes back. And so we thought like, hey, how about you get a robe, a ring, a sandal, or you can do something completely modern, like a jacket, a school ring, or sneakers or something like that, and make it kind of like just visual, so that students can actually see what these things physically represent, and just make it come alive for them, make the story come alive and more grasp for their minds and whatnot. So there's a little bit about the scripture. And then I want to point out the paper chains object lesson, where this is just talking about where, you know, how God welcomes us, and have you ever felt disconnected? And so students may be feeling disconnected from God in this moment right now, and they're not sure how to reconnect with God. And so this is like a way to kind of physically, like, you know, change together, and like you can change your whole youth group and just feel connected. I also really like this other activity, the welcoming place, about just asking students, you know, how welcoming is our group? How can we be more welcoming? How can you be more welcoming? And this is just a great parallel to the story of like how welcoming the father was to the son, which the father had every extent to say, you can't come back. I don't want you back anymore. You wanted me dead. So like, why should I welcome you back? But instead he shows love and grace that God shows us, in the same way that we don't necessarily deserve all that love and grace, but God still gives it to us freely. So this is a powerful lesson. One of my, like I said, my favorite story of the Bible. What I truly believe who God is in this story. So I love this a lot. And so I hope this is meaningful for you and for your students as well, as you go through this lost son parable. Elle, anything else for you, Dad?
No, I love it. I feel all warm and fuzzy just listening to you talk about it. It's so great. I also just love, like, friends, it is our delight to do all of the cultural and contextual researching for you. Of course, we want you to do your own as well, so that you can understand it. But we also realize, like, hey, a lot of youth pastors are bivocational. You're doing this kind of by accident sometimes, of like, oh, my church just asked me to do this. I don't have a Bible degree. I'm like, you know, just figuring this out. So we're here to try to help teach you some things along the way, and hopefully it helps. That is the goal here.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So that is week 3. And then remember, it's only part 1 of this story. We are going to retell the whole story again in week 4, but in a different way, and kind of flip it and focus on a different character. So this is week 4. Jesus invites you to the party, part 2 of the lost / prodigal son. Tell us all about this one, David.
Yes. So this one's part 2. We open up this sermon with this activity called the bitterness taste test. So this was really cool. I think this will be really done well with your students, but essentially we tell you as the youth pastor to grab some bitter foods like black tea, artichoke, broccoli, dark chocolate, some grapefruit, some kale, and we tell to like give this to your students, and so that they can try it and get that like bitterness taste, because all these foods are pretty bitter. And so we'll note to this like why this matters later in the sermon, but this is just a really good way to open things up. If you're doing this online or in person, tell them just like to go grab some of these items. You can even like just throw something on your screen and say, hey, grab one of these foods and taste it or something like that. And just kind of experience it and just try to feel like that is. If you don't want to go that far, we just even have a couple questions about like bitterness. And so we have one down there that says, have you ever felt bitter towards someone? So even if you don't want to do the food taste test thing, you can even just ask this question of like, what does it mean to be bitter? How do you feel bitterness to someone? Or what does it feel like? Just to kind of, again, get them in the frame of mindsets of what bitterness is like. Or you could even do, I just saw this because this is fantastic, the ill gifts video as well. So like you can type in on wherever you want to find your gifts, and you can type in ill and it'll pop up all these funny like kind of gifts and that sort of thing. And you can show that to your students, so you can find one for yourselves. So it's kind of fun. So I don't know.
Yeah, and guys, we give you, like, you could totally use every single element that we provide you inside of Grow Students. But, you know, if you're like pressed for time, you're like, oh, I can't do all of these things. That's why we give you the message builder, so that you're like, oh, you know what? I can't do all of this, but I could get this point across with just doing the activity or just asking this question. So in the message builder, all you have to do is just click delete if you don't want to use one. And that's all you have to do. So all customizable. Feel free to do what you want with it.
Yes.
All right. That's our intro. That's our setup. What next?
So then we go into the scripture section. Oh, one thing real quick before you scroll down. So I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I think that also in every week there's a story before the scripture section. So I'm not going too much into that, but you guys can, if you are a subscriber, you can go into that and look at that. And that like Elle, what you were saying, this is another option for you to open up the lesson or open up the scriptures for you just to tell stories. Again, like I talk about it all the time, how like if you tell a story about yourself, you know, that opens up to your students. Makes a little bit more personal connection with you and your students, and they get to actually see you talking about things that you actually went through or a volunteer went through, or even if you have a student who went through something like this, you can do that as well. So there's that. So if you want to go into a little bit more in depth, but we'll go into the scripture section now, and we talk about the prodigal son for the older son. And so this one, we give a breakdown of what happened the past 3 weeks with the stories. We give it a recap, and then we go into the prodigal son, the older son. And so this activity, you could do this if you want. It's kind of like where you kind of do a little drama skit type of deal where you kind of do what the conversation between the older son and the father and just kind of talk that up. And you can do it however you want to do that. And then we go into the scripture section. We talk about, you know, the older son and how he felt super bitter about how his dad just like gave everything to the son that like squandered everything, and now he's back, and this older son's like, what are you doing? Like, I've been here all the time. Like, why have you never done this before? And the parable ends really beautifully. I think it just kind of finishes off with, you don't hear a response of what the older brother did. You just kind of, it just finishes. And so Jesus is like, so what do we do? What do we do? And like Elle, what you were saying, like this is to the Pharisees, and like, you know, he tells a story and we don't hear how the older son responded. So like, it just kind of, we just know he was bitter. We know he was upset, but how did he respond? Who knows? Did he go to the party? Did he not? Did he not? And so then I love how we do this. After we finish that scripture part, we do this now what section, and we really hit it home here with the where do you see yourself? And so like we really ask students, like, where are you in this journey? Where are you in your faith in terms of your relationship with God, with Jesus? Are you a lost person? Are you a bitter person? So we really just give a lot of reflection there. And then we finish it off with a party because, you know, the story finishes off with a party. So we felt like it would be appropriate to kind of finish off with a party song. So we give you guys some suggested party songs to play as you close your evening or your night or your afternoon, in whatever time you do your ministry programming. And we just give them a song. So there you go.
So good.
Yes.
I love it. I am so excited for this series. It is going to be a treasure. Can't wait. And friends, when you do the series, if you're doing the series, we would love to see pictures. We would love to see like what you've done to make it your own. So please feel free. Tell us all the things. If you already have ideas of how you're customizing it, you can drop it in the comments. We want to know all the things. So tell us, because, you know, we feel like we get to collaborate with you guys even after this stuff is published, because you take it and you make it even better. So let us know, because you got great.
I think that's one of the coolest things, is like looking through the Facebook group and just seeing pictures of people doing things and activities and all that sort of stuff. And I'm just like, oh, this is so cool. It's like everything is coming to real life after working on it, and it just coming to life. So it's really cool.
So great.
Tag us, post it. Don't be ashamed. Just show us what you got.
Yes, please. We want to see. Also, little sneak peek for those of you who are Grow users. For volume 5, we have been listening to some of your feedback about things that would be useful and things that are not so useful. So like we've got down here for every series, we give you like a volunteer communication guide, parent communication guide, and student communication guide. And what some of you have said is like, hey, I get it, but like these are a lot of pages and I don't need all of this. So just a little thing that we're doing to make your life a little bit better is we figured out a way to simplify all of this and give you more helpful stuff in fewer pages. So that's what we've been working on over here, just trying to consolidate some stuff for you. So hooray for that. And 1-minute sermons, I love these. These are not going away ever, probably. So unless you tell us you hate them, then I guess we could get rid of them, but we like them. So the team at Rescue a Generation has been making these for us. They're so good. And it's just a great thing that you can either like use the videos we provide you, or we give you the scripts in case you want to film them yourself and have you teach a 1-minute version of each of these messages. So don't forget to check that out. All right, we're done with Lost and Found. Say goodbye to Lost and Found until you teach it in your ministry. Now, let's shift to talking about a spring retreat. So if you are using the Grow Your Ministry bundle of resources, you know that we have this like big, robust event strategy that we give you. So we give you at least one event for every quarter. And those events are really tied to like what's going on in ministry at that moment in time. So like in the fall, you get a really fun all-nighter to kick off your school year. In the winter, you get like a fun, like either Christmas themed or just some kind of winter themed event. And then in the spring, we know that a lot of you do some kind of retreat during the spring. You don't have to use this as a spring retreat. You can use this for whatever you want. We give you like the editable graphics so that you can say fall retreat or whatever you want to say, just change that out. But what we wanted to do today is to kind of go through some of the resources that we give you. And if you have questions about like how to plan a retreat, feel free to drop them in the comments because we might have some resources in here that I can show you. And we'll also just kind of show you some, different ways to do things. So in this retreat, there's 2 like different versions of a retreat that we can look at. One option is like an offsite retreat at some kind of retreat facility. And then the other option is a retreat in host homes. So it just depends like what format you want, but we give you ideas and resources on how to do both. And then we also give you a teaching series that is really ideal for a spring retreat. It has the right amount of sessions. It has the right amount of like vibe and focus and is really designed for a spring retreat. So in volume 4, that series is called Hard to Believe, and it's the story of Jonah by Layla de la Garza. And it's great. So we can look at both of these things, but David, I'll let you lead the way through this. What should we look at? What do you want to do?
Yeah. So this spring retreat event guide is super comprehensive. Like I was saying, like I was looking through this and I was like, man, this is so cool. Like this is everything you need to plan a retreat. And so we'll just dive right into it. And we've got all sorts of different things from planning to how-tos to graphics, marketing, and teaching, everything we have there for you guys. And so this is almost essentially like we know youth pastors are very busy and you got a lot on your plate. So you've got your juggling like teaching stuff, you're juggling administration, parents, relationships with students. And so this is just like, we just give this to you and we have this for you. This is super adjustable to what you need. So many different options, just depending on what your context is. So use as much as you want, use as little as you want. So yeah, we start off here. We give you guys just like things to think about as you are thinking about like dates for the retreats, transportation, registration, all this sort of things. It's just like everything you need to think about a retreat, it's in here. Like you just need to like, maybe take half a day or even a whole day and just like really just kind of comb through this, figure this out, figure out how it applies to your ministry context and what you need to adjust here and there to satisfy your ministry. And so just to pull off an excellent retreat. This planning timeline, oh my gosh, like it makes me super happy to see this planning timeline because I'm Enneagram 9s. For those of you who are familiar with Enneagram 9s, I like to, kind of be very laid back and kind of like, as is and take it as the flow. But this kind of like gives me a little bit more accountability. Like, hey, this is what I need to do. This is my checklist. I'm going down my list 6 months out, 3 months out, 6 weeks in advance, 4 weeks, and just kind of like really go through and just kind of make sure I'm really thinking about everything. So I do went to the one, which go ahead, go for it.
Oh, I was just gonna interrupt you to say, if you've been with Grow for a while, you may have seen this planning timeline grow over time because, at first, and like the first year, also, I'm also an Enneagram 9, and I'm like, I don't know, like, I guess we could do these things. So I'm pretty sure I made the first version of the planning timeline, and it was very sparse. And then we have Emily Acton on our team, who, bless her sweet angel heart, was like, this is not sufficient. So Emily built out this like beautiful epic planning timeline with way more details than what I included. And so you're now seeing kind of the more of the Emily Acton version, but we keep adding to it when we find, we've missed some things that are really important. So our contributors will like add little notes of like, oh, this would also be great. So it just keeps getting better every year.
It does. Yeah.
Thanks to everyone but me.
Oh man. So yeah, we have that. We even give you a suggested schedule of like what the event should look like, what the retreat should look like. Again, like this is just like it's a suggested schedule, so you don't have to follow exactly. Like I know variety of different churches have your traditions, competitions. Sometimes you have talent shows, so feel free to plug those in where you need to. This is also just a really cool way to send, if you're doing it for offsite, sometimes they ask you for like, hey, what's your schedule? When do you need meal times? Or maybe they have set meal times. And so you can just plug in those meal times and just kind of work your schedule around that. So super cool way just for you to just, not have to think about it too much. It's there for you, and you just got to change a few things out here and there. We have volunteer roles as well to, just to think about every single step of the process, every single thing that you need for your adults and for your volunteers. Look at this, even a volunteer meeting too. Like, this is so cool. Like, you don't even have to come up with the agenda yourself. We have it here for you. Just say this and you'll be good to go.
I love your genuine joy over this, David. It makes me very happy.
This is so great. This is just like, this is fantastic. You're doing my job for me. You're doing the youth pastor's job. Like, we shouldn't even like tell like senior leaders about this, because like then they might even like hire you or something like that. I don't know.
Friends, keep this a secret. Do not show this to your boss, because we want you to get all the credit. So keep that under wraps.
Exactly. So I don't know. It just brings me a lot of joy to see all this planning stuff, all this thought into how to put a pull off a retreat, because retreats are sometimes like our most awesome moments in ministry, where you really get to bond with your students, really get to do some like life breaking work with students and like in their spiritual lives. I know retreats for me always were like a super like spiritual high. So you want to do this well and make sure, because like a good retreat will hopefully equal a good impact in the students' spiritual lives. Now, obviously, God can work in retreats that aren't planned very well, but there's no excuse right here. We have a retreat plan for you that's done well. So many things that you can look at here, so many things to think about. Just like really go through this. Like I said, take a half a day or a day to go through this. We give you guys the graphics, which they're right there. This is also really cool. We give you the email, and it looks cool too. So like you'll get bonus points with your parents because it'll look good. So it's all there for you guys. It's all there.
So great. And friends, again, like there's two versions in here as well. So there's like the offsite version or the host home version. Whatever format you prefer, you can pick and choose. And also shout out to Steven Switzer on our team, because I was telling David, I'm pretty sure like volumes 1 and 2, I think we had a version of the spring retreat that was maybe just offsite, I think. I forget, but at some point, Stephen came in and revolutionized this for us and gave us all of these wonderful resources for a host home and a, like on-site retreat center kind of thing. So just all the great brains coming together to make this happen. And speaking of great brains, we also have the great brain of Layla de la Garza, who authored the series for us called Hard to Believe, and it's the story of Jonah. You want to walk us through this one a little bit, David?
Yeah, so this one's about Jonah, and I love Jonah's story, talking about how Jonah was very stubborn in his ways and kind of pushed away from God, and he was just kind of like, I don't know, I'm not gonna listen to God. And so obviously God has kind of God's ways and stuff like that. And it's interesting. It's a fascinating story. A lot of context can go into this as well. And so, I think this will be a really cool way to do it for a retreat. It's also super short. It's a 4-chapter book, And so this will be perfect for like a retreat. And we've got it broken down there for you guys: Friday night, Saturday morning, Sunday morning. And Elle, I believe this is correct, that the night sessions are more of like our, main, like what you'll find for a week for a teaching session. And then our morning sessions are more like short devotional, discussion based, that sort of thing. So we really go all out for our night sessions. And then the mornings are more kind of like discussion based. They're really great as well, but they're just not as long as the morning sessions are. So
yeah,
right.
The other thing we do for both our weekend retreats and our summer camp is the way that we structure this is like we do the same big idea in the evening and then the following morning. So the idea, kind of the flow for these like big events that we were trying to get at for you is like in the evenings, you kind of introduce this big idea with, a typical sermon, something that is, you teaching, there's object lessons, activities, all that good stuff. But then the next morning, after students have kind of like decompressed a little bit, they've come down off the sugar high, hopefully slept for like 3 hours, I think the average for a weekend retreat. In the morning, you ease them back into the teaching by reminding them of what they learned the night before and kind of, just going a little bit deeper in like more of a discussion based kind of format. So I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. Also, I just wanted to point out and laugh at this dumb background idea that I just find so funny and charming. Literally all it is making a big styrofoam cutout of the graphics, but then doing like a big shark bite out of it. So I thought that was pretty funny. So I don't remember where that idea came from, but I loved it. Okay, so let me show you kind of the difference between the evening sessions versus the morning sessions. So the evening sessions are structured very much like our typical Grow lessons. You've got, all sorts of different modules, videos, images, all that good stuff. We don't go too crazy on like physical activities because we know that a lot of times in retreats, you guys are kind of teaching from a stage where instead of, not necessarily like a roundtable discussion. So we do have some, but we try to make them work for you if you're doing like the big on stage teaching. So that's pretty typical for an evening session. And then we recommend doing some small group discussion after that evening session. And then in the morning, we just call it like a devotional, like the Saturday morning devotional. And these are designed so that either you could teach it in sort of like a more low key type of session in the morning, or you could potentially even hand it off to your small group leaders and let them teach this in small groups, like either in host homes or in cabins or wherever you guys are at. These are much more discussion based. You'll see a lot of this blue module for discussions, maybe a story, and like a really easy to prep activity or object lesson, things that a volunteer could do without much help from you. So that's the idea. That's how those work. Let's see if there's any other, no, that's just it. So there you go. Pretty straightforward. Anything else you wanted to look at on this one, David?
Not necessarily for teaching, but I think you can even use so I know obviously some of us are still online, retreats are maybe not in your frame of reference just yet. I don't know. So I think you can still probably use some of the event guide and even some of this teaching stuff to do some sort of like online retreat. I know like early on, almost about a year ago when, all this stuff was just first starting to happen. I saw actually a youth pastor who did like an online retreat with his students. He did it over Zoom. And so you can still use some of the same concepts that we have here for the retreat if you need to do it online. Obviously, there's a lot more logistics that you need to plan and figure out if you're going to do something like that online. But I hope and I think that you could probably still use, like I said, some of the concepts that we are using in the event guide, even in our teaching, you can use go through a teaching. Or you can like what we were talking about, we can save this and you can use it for like the fall or the winter of next year for your retreat, whenever you do retreats. So whatever it's safe enough to do a retreat.
Right. Instead of a spring retreat, you can do a yay, we're all vaccinated retreat.
Yeah, you could.
Cool. Would love to see that branding. Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, wonderful. Thank you, David, for walking us through all of those wonderful resources. I'm so excited to see how you guys use them. Please share with us your pictures and videos and like highlights and just, other interesting things that you've done to really make these things come alive. We love it. And we love hearing what you have to say. And we've definitely recruited some new Grow contributors this way of like, oh, wow, that's a great idea. Come do a series with us next time. So share with us your genius. We are always on the lookout for amazing ideas. And friends, thank you for hanging out with us for the last 45 minutes. We will be back next month to do the same thing. And next month, we're going to be talking about the plan for the month of April. So we're going to be covering 2 more resources from Grow students. One is going to be I think it's our Easter series, right? Yes, it's our Easter series because Easter's in April. Yeah. Yes. So we're doing our Easter series. And then we are also going to be looking at a really fun event that I know some of you guys have already done, but a lot of you have not. You can either do this event live on your church campus, or you can kind of make these little take-home boxes for families. And it is a family game night box. They're super fun. If you search this group for family game night, you will find some posts of people who have already done it. So you can kind of get an idea of what it looks like if you want a little spoiler. Super cool. So we're going to be talking about both of those things next month. But feel free, if you've got questions, even if you're watching the replay of this video, feel free to leave them in the comments. Tag me and David, and we would love to, give you whatever info you need. All right. I think that's all I've got. Anything else you want to say to the people, David?
Good. Keep trucking on. Keep doing the ministry. We're praying for you guys, hoping all the best for you. And just, let us know how we can help. We're here for you guys.
Love it. Amazing. Friends, thank you so much. Have the best day. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Yeah.